All right, what's up, people? Now, if you can't tell, I've lost my fucking voice, or at least half of it. So this is gonna be a fun motherfucking video. And I figured for this one, I'd go some old school shit. I made a 4-part video on this once. I think I actually made 2 4-part videos on this. The first was called Jesus and His 5 Brothers. And then the second one was called Catholicism. And then that was the title, but it was parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And basically, yeah, you're going to have to fucking deal with that fucking shit, right? Yeah, I'm getting over something. Damn sure wasn't COVID, but it was something. I don't give a fuck what it was. It didn't kill me. So guess what? Stronger here I stand. The real Jesus. The historical guy. Now, I know there are mythicists out there, people that think that wasn't even a real guy. I disagree. Go somewhere else. Or you can argue with me in the comments if you want. But I think it's undeniable that there was a real, what might be called, Jesus of Nazareth. And the of Nazareth, the Nazorian part, that can be argued. I get that, but I think there was a real guy. I think it's undeniable based on the fact that we know that there is a real Paul. And I'll get back to Paul. This might even be a long video. It's probably going to be. It's already 2 minutes in. Haven't even got the shit yet. And I might have to do this with a fucking laryngitis, bitch. No, I'm just kidding. But there was a real Paul. We know this. Not all of the New Testament epistles are his, but we know that there are at least like 9 or 10 that are definitely his, just based on the, analysis of his verbiage, the way he talks, etc. We know he's real. His whole thing lines up historically. We know this. He was active in the 50s, late 40s, into the 50s, and then maybe into the early 60s, I forget. But that's basically the time period of Paul. And he knows of and has met those that are called the pillars. And those pillars would be James, that would be the brother of the Lord. Cephas, that would be Peter. Cephas would be the Aramaic. So, Paul knows the Aramaic, and he writes it in Greek as Cephas, but it's Cephas from the Aramaic, which was Peter, the rock. And then, it was James, Peter, and John. So he knew these were called elders, or at the time presbytoi, which now becomes translated as priest. It's weird the way this whole thing works. But the elders were actually the presbytoi. It's weird the way this shit works. The bishops were they were the overseers. But this was the early church organization. We need to get back before that. So we know that Paul knew those who knew Jesus. So I'm assuming he's real. Just based on that, it's like what in Islam is called an isnad. An isnad is a line of transmission. X heard it from Y, heard it from Z, heard it from B. And if B is a reliable source, and then we can say that X is a reliable source, etc. That's the isnad. That's a chain of transmission. Islam perfected it, but we already have something like that within what's called nascent Christianity. So we do have Paul that knows of the pillars, James, Cephas, and John, has met them, has even gone on record as saying that he had a beef with them. Now in history, this is what's known as confirmation by, I forget the term, but it's something like embarrassment. Because you wouldn't put that out there if it weren't true. Because it doesn't make you look good that you had a beef with the so-called pillars. He even says so-called. That's Paul's words, the so-called. So Paul was at odds with another group within early Christianity, another group that included somebody known as the brother of the Lord, i.e. James. And I would argue that John was a brother as well. Peter was not. Andrew and Peter were fishermen. They were pulled into the group early on, but the group already existed because it was a group of 5 brothers. And they were terrorists. Yeah, I said that because that's what they were. According to Rome, Rome was the power of the time. Rome had gone into Palestine and had basically put his boot over the necks of the Palestinian Jews. You can read about it in the canonical Gospels, but mainly the Synoptics. The idea that Rome was always there is a reality, which means that this document, these 3 documents, actually it's more like 4 or 5, when you get into Q, and then you get into the Gospel of Thomas, etc., etc. But I think there was a guy, and I think he was a sage / mystic. I also think that he was a fighter. I also think that he was a warrior. I don't think he was weak. I think a lot of that shit that gets put out there, the turn the other cheek thing, I think, most people say, like, we understand the parables, right? Read that one again. Read that one again. See, because here's what I'm going to say. I'm not even going to get into that one. I'm going to just tell you, read that one again. And you'll have a different understanding of it after what I just told you. But there's another one that people bring up all the motherfucking time. And it has to do with the end will come like a thief in the night. And almost everybody believes that what Jesus was talking about was the end of the world. No. He was talking about the end of your life, the end of your particular world. It will always come up like a thief in the night. When you least suspect it, that's when you're going to die. He wasn't talking about the fucking world. He even said, no man knows. Not even the Son. And of course, all of that was fuck. He never really said that. But at least they got the fucking vibe right. Jesus was a revolutionary in the vein of the Maccabees. In the vein of those who, as pious Jews, could not stand to see the temple being used. That's why the money changing, it wasn't a parable, it was a story, is most likely real. He probably did go in there and kick over some fucking money changing fucking. This dude was not averse to violence. The whole pacifist Jesus thing, that was pasted on top. That's only a few fucking lines of scripture. Most of what Jesus is saying is code. He spoke in parables so that they would not understand. Who is the they? It wasn't the disciples, because they understood. Sorry. I'm breaking apart. I told you I would. The they was the Romans, the centurions. They were always around. He spoke in parables. They were insurrectionists. Jesus and his 5 brothers. I don't have time to get into who those were here. But if you read the Bible well enough, and then you go to the Talmud and you see that the Jesus that they talk about in there, Jesus ben Pantera, they believe that Jesus' father was actually a Roman centurion named Pantera of the Panther. The Panther. They have their stories. I think all these stories are a little bit broken. It's like looking through a broken mirror. You can still see shards of the fucking truth. But you have to be able to very carefully reconstruct that, because you can't reconstruct what's in the mirror by reconstructing the mirror. And what are you trying to reconstruct? So, who do I think this man was? I think he was somebody that wanted to uplift Palestine, uplift his race of people, the, Palestinian Jews. I think he hated the Roman occupation. Kind of the same way the Afghanis and the Iraqis hated our occupation. That's why they would set up the IEDs. That's why they would do the little things they could do to fucking fuck with us. Judas Iscariot. Jesus, basically, he was one of his brothers, actually. The one that betrayed him to the Romans. His name literally means of the Sicarii. And those were basically like the assassins of their day. They had a small curved dagger that they would carry in their in the side of their side of their pants type shit. And they were it would be on this side because I'm right-handed, and most people are right-handed. They would pull that thing out and they would just slit the bellies or the necks of whoever they were trying to kill. Of the dagger, or it was a curved dagger. It wasn't like a straight knife. Kind of like a little mini sickle, but not so much curved. A typical Arabian blade at the time, although pre-Arabian. But you get what I'm saying. But the idea is that's who these people were. Jesus and James and John and Judas. There was a couple more. Just Thaddeus, I think. I might be wrong about it, but it was him and his 5 brothers. And those were the 12. And then, not the 12, but the 12 became a significance more for what might be called mathematical or numerological reasons. It had more to do with, how should you say, I don't know, imitating a pantheon of Greek gods, because ultimately Christianity was a Greek religion, even though its origins are definitely Palestinian and Jewish, and steeped in fucking insurrection and battling Roman hegemony. And it was a bloody affair. And yeah, there was this guy, and he was a sage, and he had a lot of really smart things to say. But at the end of the day, he wanted one thing. Well, I guess he eventually got it, because most people have a very high opinion of Jesus. If you're a Christian, you think he's the second person of the Trinity. If you're a Muslim, you think he's a prophet beyond all compare, except for, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad. So he's number 2 in Islam. And then every other religion besides those 2, and those 2 account for like 80% of the world's like religious thinking. Pretty much everybody else, even atheists, are like, well, Jesus was pretty cool, I mean, he has some good things to say. We like his, moral philosophy. We can take some bits from that, and it's good with us. So, well, that's just my perspective on who I think Jesus was. I think it's a very interesting topic. I mean, there's also the question of who Muhammad was, which is maybe a video I'll do eventually when I get my voice back for real. But yeah, so who do you think Jesus was? I mean, I went into a little bit here, but there's so much more you could go into. I mean, some people think he wasn't real at all. That's the mythicist position. But let me know in the comments below, and thanks for your time and all that shit. And I know my voice sucks, but this is like me trying to work it back up to speed, if that makes any fucking sense. All right, peace out.